As Rangers fans, we know that a goaltender is the backbone of a hockey team. At Abundant Wealth Management, we are your financial backbone, offering financial planning, wealth management, tax planning, and estate planning services. To schedule your free consultation, head to www.abundant-wealth.com. That's www.abundant-wealth.com. Abundant Wealth Management. Live, plan, triumph.
You're listening to Rangers Radio, your home for end-to-end coverage of the New York Rangers. With your hosts, Brendan Azoff, Zach Domino, and Steve Pappas. Blue Shirts fans, the puck drops now.
What's up, Rangers fans? Welcome back to New York Rangers Radio. Steven and Brendan here to do an emergency pod because the news has officially become official. We all were talking about this for the last 24 to 48 hours, but Chris Kreider appears to have waived his no-trade clause and will be headed to the Anaheim Ducks. So we're just going to give you our initial reactions, talk a little bit about the trickle-down effect this might have. But Steven, I'll let you kick things off. Your initial thoughts to this.
I mean, first of all, if you wanna say we're not first to the punch on this one, I mean, the trade basically happened 37 minutes ago, and here we are, sitting on a live trying to break down what exactly happened. Very interested to hear from everybody else as well. The show's obviously not one way, so get in the comments. We'd be more than happy to hear from you. But other than the fact that this is an end of an era, I think. It's been funny watching and going on Twitter the last couple of days and seeing like these tributes and whatnot to Chris Kreider. I have kind of made peace with this happening for a long time at this point. And sort of after, the season that was for Kreider and really the team in general, it was a little bit easier for me to let this one go. Just because you knew the time was up, everything has sort of run its course, his time in New York. But just off the top, this trade is a mid-round pick and Kerry Terrence, who is in upstate New York. Basically, I mean, I don't know if you saw where it is on a map. He's basically in Montreal, where he's from. So he's almost as Canadian as he is American. But I mean, listen, I didn't think you were going to get a huge haul for Chris Kreider. This is about what you were going to get. You've cleared the salary. I think that's the most important part. Listen, there's going to be people that are very emotionally attached to certain players. And, I think we all get guilty of that. And people are going to be very upset that Chris Kreider is no longer a New York Ranger, but this was a deal that had to be done. This is a deal that you really, as the Rangers general manager, cannot win. Like, you can't get a good return or somebody that's worth the return for Chris Kreider in this deal. Really, it was just trying to get rid of that $6+ million in cap space, and that was what was done. And we don't know what's coming next. Basically, if you're not tied down to Madison Square Garden, you're available at the moment. We've heard Mika's name, we've heard Panarin's name, we've heard Keandre Miller's name, we've heard Alexis Lafreniere's name. I think the three guys that are untouchable at this point are Adam Fox, Igor Shesterkin, and Gabe Perreault at this point. So it's a long-winded way of saying this is the end of an era, but it had to be done. And you did what you had to do if you're Chris Drury. You've freed up cap space to do what you need to do with it. And I'm here for it. Let's see what happens next, because I think this is not going to be a very quiet summer. And I think it's June 12th and free agency hasn't started yet. Free agency is like 3 weeks away and we're already trading guys. So here we go. Everybody's happy. It's time to go.
Well, when you said first to the punch, I thought you were going to refer to the fact that 2 weeks before the season even ended, we all kind of had a consensus, you, me, Zook, that this was Kreider's last year as a Ranger.
Yeah.
So, you fast forward a couple of months, here we are. Season's still going on. We got, the Stanley Cup final still in full swing. But for the Rangers, it's been done for, about 6 to 8 weeks at this point. And like you said, there's a time to be sentimental. And now that it's official, you can go back and you can look at all the good things that he did. Because I think you'd be kind of naive to admit that he didn't do some good things for the Rangers, right? If you think about some of the clutch goals, and I always go back to Game 5 against the Caps when they were down 3-1. He scored the goal that led to the to tie it up with like a minute and a half left that led to the McDonough overtime winner. I was at that game, one of my favorite games that I've ever been at, and it's all possible because of Kreider. So yeah, on one hand, you could say a ton good that he did for the Rangers, but on the other hand, and with the we're in 2025 now, right? $6.5 million, like you mentioned, is coming off the books in a season that the Rangers need to sign a couple of key RFAs and are really trying to revamp their roster on the fly right now. That $6.5 million can go a long way, especially as the cap starts to go up. So I think that's key. And if you don't know who Carey Terrence is, and I'm not going to sit here and say I'm an expert on him, but he's a two-way forward, good speed, good skating, which is something the Rangers have lacked over the course of the last couple of years. So I don't think he's going to be in the NHL, starting the regular season, but that's somebody you can keep an eye on, or that they could potentially use in another trade subsequent to this. And it's sad to see how they've kind of crumbled, but if you were paying attention throughout the 24-25 season, you could just tell that the writing was on the wall here. And you mentioned Zibanejad. To me, the only way you were ever going to get him to even come close to waiving was to move Kreider, and they've now done that. I don't know if that means Zibanejad is going to waive that no movement clause and be willing to be dealt, but there's certain things that you have to do, and I don't think that this trade was simply to get Zibanejad to waive, but this trade had to happen for cap purposes, and it had to happen because this team has to go in a different direction. We said this on the show numerous times. This core has had their chance. They've had the opportunity. They've been to 3 Eastern Conference Finals. They've, Stanley Cup final. Kreider's been to more than 3. So you had it. You couldn't get it done. It's time to revamp. And the problem that I see with this is that not only do you need to add a 20-plus goal scorer to cover what Kreider's been able to do for the last 10, 12 years consistently, you also need to find somebody who's got a power play net front presence. You also got to find somebody that's willing to kill penalties and score shorthanded goals, because he's had a few big ones. And you've got to still revamp the entire defense, because if you wind up moving from K'Andre Miller, which we could talk about, Carson Soucy, Vakanainen, and insert name here as the third pair lefty, not going to cut it.
All right, well, then here's the question, and that is, you've freed up the money to at least sign one of Cooley or K'Andre Miller. If you want to talk about a guy that can, fill in the position of a Chris Kreider, it is Will Cooley. I mean, he's chiseled in the Chris Kreider gene pool, basically, of the size and skill set, the skating ability, the net front ability. Do you believe that he can score 20 goals and he can be a presence on the power play? Because I don't think, as much as we dog Drury, he's not stupid. He's not going to trade away a guy in Chris Kreider if he doesn't have an answer in return. That obviously can't happen until July 1st to sign Will Cooley. So, I mean, you're not going to, for the next month, basically, you're going to have a vacant spot there. But, I mean, there is a seismic shift that is happening here. And I'm all here for it. I think, things get stale and, the Rangers, credit to Chris Drury, you see a lot of teams throughout history. I mean, the most recent one is the Toronto Maple Leafs. And, even if you go back to the old, the Pittsburgh Penguins of old, the San Jose Sharks, they let these cores get stale. They let the cores get old and stale, and, just a sad way for some of these guys to go out. With the Rangers, I mean, listen, they gave it 1 year. They gave it 1 year of trying to run it back, and it didn't work. And, all credit to Chris Drury, where he just, says, all right, it didn't work. Let's move on and see what we got. Now, what's going to happen at the draft? What's going to happen at free agency? What's going to happen in trades down the line? Is all, we don't know what's going to happen yet. Come September, we're gonna know what this team sort of looks like, and can get a better gauge on what this team is going to be. Because, like I said earlier, there's no person on this team right now outside of 3 guys maybe that are guaranteed pencil into the lineup come October 10th or 11th or 12th, whenever the first game of the year is. But, Chris Kreider, just trying to, tie this with a bow, unbelievable Ranger. I said it last year after the Carolina series, after Game 6. And sullying one season isn't going to, do it for me. But I think he's a guy that we can we could seriously look at and throw up in the rafters. It sucks, but it had to be done.
Yeah.
I mean, favorite Chris Kreider moment. There's so many of them. I mean, you had mentioned the tying goal in that Game 5 against Washington in 2015. I remember where I was sitting. I was in a Charlie Brown's, which like doesn't exist anymore. That's how long ago that was. I'm trying to think of. I mean, the one that sticks out to my mind. There's two that really stick out to my mind. It's his first goal at Madison Square Garden against Washington in 2012, where he gets like that breakaway, winds up for a slap shot, and then tumbles into the boards afterwards.
You're like, who the hell is this guy?
Yeah,
Right?
like,
Fresh out of college.
And then 2014 against Montreal, like I know they didn't win in overtime, but tying the game in the final 30 seconds in Game 3 against Montreal to send that to OT was incredible. So I mean, so many good memories, and I'm obviously scoring a hat trick in Game 6 against Carolina last year was
the most recent one, right?
Yeah, the most recent playoff accolade that he's had.
It's kind of crazy when you think about it. And I just want to say that for, the RFAs like Cooley, Miller, Edstrom, Rempe, all the RFAs that they have, the Rangers have until Monday after the NHL entry draft or June 25th, which I think will be the Monday after, to extend a qualifying offer. So we'll get to know a sense of who they plan on at least negotiating with and trying to match if there were an offer sheet by that point. And like you said, Cooley is the on roster guy. That's the perfect candidate to do it, right? And you have Othman, who could potentially fill a similar type of mold. You have Perreault, who you hope could take a step. But the problem that I have right now is that it's all hope, right? You have to hope that the team doesn't regress the way they did last season, and you have to hope that the new guys and the kids that come up. Othman played how many games that didn't score a goal? Perreault had a couple of good looks, didn't bury one. You got to hope that they can take that step and that there's no learning curve for them in a full season. So there's a lot of ifs, right, around this team. And then you look at the free agent class, and it's at best, right? I think Gavrikov,
from a forward's perspective, at least. I mean, you could really shore up your defense in this.
You can, and I like the idea of like a Vladislav Gavrikov coming in. I think he's a good defenseman, and they need that. But then there has to be a push towards modernizing this roster, and I think that Carey Terrence as a prospect, that kind of fits that mold. You need somebody that could skate, and they have to play both sides of the puck. If you look at the Stanley Cup final right now, both teams are built on guys that have elite speed, and obviously Edmonton has a couple of superstars, but they found players around them that kind of fit the speed and two-way player mold. Florida, we obviously know what they're built on. It's all their players can play both sides of the puck, and I think that's key right now. The Rangers have, over the last 2 years, tried to supplement the pieces around the core with these, tall guys, physical guys. That would have worked if this was 2005, but it's not that anymore, right? We're 20 years past that. It's a modernized NHL. And when I look at the current roster, it leaves a lot to be desired. Do I think they still have a chance at the playoffs the way they're currently structured? I do, because of the guy in goal. But they have to do some more work. But I know we were talking off air. I've said this a couple of times. To me, it's not the worst case scenario if they make these moves this year, hold on to whatever cap they could hold on to for next season. And, if you finish in the bottom 5 of the league, so be it. Hopefully you could win the lottery like the Islanders just did this year. You can get Gavin McKenna, who's a generational player, and then go out and try to sign McDavid, Cycles, those guys who are all going to be free agents in the class of 26. So I think that there has to be a fine line between what Dolan dictates, which he obviously always wants a competitive team. But there has to be a fine line between that competitiveness in the 25-26 season and not leaving yourself with no room to enhance the roster with, star players, because that's really all the 26 class is made of. And Artemi Panarin's $11.5 million comes off the books at the end of next season. You have the $6.5 million freed up by Kreider. Vincent Trocheck's going to be on a moderate no trade. Can they wind up moving him at the end of next year? There's a lot of different options where if you don't saddle yourself with bad contracts this season, you can really improve a roster next year. So to me, this is not a move that's just for 25. Yep.
Here's my only thought on that. If you're going to go out and listen, if you're going to tank this year, be my guest, but you got to keep some talent around, right? If you want to lure a Connor McDavid. You can't go and trade Trocheck, Zibanejad. I mean, you go down the list, Miller, all these guys. You need to, if the goal at the end goal is to go sign Connor McDavid, you got to have some sort of talent back here. And going after Gavin McKenna, the lotteries. I mean, we talked about it. Trying to follow that lottery system this year was a pain in the ass, and
I don't think that's realistic. I don't think this team's bad enough to be in that range. But ignore the whole lottery prospect of it, because that's just a pipe dream, right? I can't remember the last time the Rangers had that type of generational player available.
Actually,
I don't think it's ever been.
I had seen this, and I don't know if I had sent it to you guys. Speaking about the lottery, the last time the Rangers were in the bottom 5 of the National Hockey League?
You did send this to us, but I do not remember the number.
It was, I'm not going to remember the exact year, but it was like 1962. And at that time, there were 6 teams in the league.
Yeah. So I mean, they've been consistent.
It is perpetually like good, but not good enough, and bad, but not bad enough. It's just mediocre. That's all it is.
They're either conference finals and overachieving by, the metric standpoint, or underachieving, but not bad enough to be a top 10 team. And even this year, right, they had a tough season, and all of a sudden still not inside the bottom 10 where they could get a great pick. But listen, I think that you move on from Kreider, right? We all know what 26 class has, but this year you have to do basically the anti-jury so far, right? It can't be add physical guys. Don't go out there and try to sign Sam Bennett to $8 to $10 million a year, because he's not going to replicate what he did with Florida with the Rangers. I'm sorry. This team's not built that way. So it's got to be smaller pieces, and you have to have a hard look. I think this year becomes, a wishful thinking year where you're like, what if all of this happens? But it's also a time to analyze and evaluate the talent on the team. If Lafreniere doesn't take a step this year, that's something that you might have to consider. If you see more aggressions from the big veteran names, well, there's going to have to be conversations. And most importantly, it's who is going to play with Adam Fox. I think it would be an absolute travesty to not have Keandre Miller and Adam Fox for a full season ever during their tenure with the Rangers together. And if you move on from Keandre Miller and trade him, is it going to be the end of the world for me? No. But to not even give that guy a chance to play on the top pair with Adam Fox, when analytically in their minutes together, they are the best NHL defensive pairing, is mind-boggling to me. So that has to be the start. If you are not going to commit to playing Keandre Miller with Adam Fox next season, then by all means try to get something in return for him.
No, but if Keandre Miller's soft, he's this, he's that. I mean, listen, if I go through the comments of that tweet that I had about putting those two together without even trading him before even giving them a chance to play together, I mean, then we got some unintelligent people. I mean, it's crazy that
it's tough. It's a tough read.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the move, right? This was the move that had to be made, freeing salary up and trading Chris Kreider. It was an expected move. If they go out and trade Keandre Miller, man, I can't. That's one I just can't get behind. I mean, it's a guy that has been known to pair with Adam Fox very well, and it's without even giving your new head coach a chance to put those two together. Like, you're not even giving Mike Sullivan a chance to put those two together if you trade them before the season starts. And Miller's shown some flashes of brilliance. I know he's a frustrating guy. He's also 25, 26.
Still young. He's an RFA. He's controllable.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to give up on a guy who's 25, who has shown extended flashes of brilliance, and if you don't see that, then I don't think you've watched competitive hockey in your life. But if you haven't seen the competitive flashes of Keandre Miller and what he can do when he's at his best, and what Adam Fox can do when he's at their best, and then combine the two, I mean, I can't get behind trading Keandre Miller right now. There's way too many, like, when we talk about hopeful stuff, there's way too many positive, hopeful things that can come out of those two being together. Listen, I'm all for signing Vladislav Gavrikov. He's a very good defenseman, and that's exactly what this team needs. But I mean, that pairing of Gavrikov and Fox doesn't do it for me as it does Miller and Fox, or even Miller and Gavrikov.
I think Gavrikov and Borgen would be a really good second pair defensively.
Yeah.
And neither one of them have to do anything that's out of their comfort zone. You have a top pair of Fox and Miller. That's going to be your offensive defenseman pair. You have Gavrikov and Borgen.
So
They can stay at home.
the official trade, at least by Pierre LeBrun, is Kreider, and a fourth for Terrence and a third. So the Rangers get a third and carry Terrence, and Anaheim gets Kreider and a fourth.
I mean, they need to stockpile picks, and it still remains to be seen. We have 3 weeks or 2.5 weeks until the actual draft starts, where the Rangers have 48 hours or whatever it is to make the decision of whether they're going to keep the first round pick this year. And how they utilize their draft capital this year is really going to be key, because I'm telling you, man, I would, unless you're going to use that first round pick in a trade for a player that's going to actually enhance the roster, nothing at 12 is going to move me. And I would rather keep your first round pick in 26, especially with the state of the roster right now, where you have no idea how competitive you're going to be. And if you're going to be in the bottom 15 next year and you have that first round pick, it's a huge step towards adding a player that could potentially play in 1 to 2 years and giving yourself draft capital or money capital to sign somebody else. So we'll see how they handle that. But to get a third round pick and to not keep any salary on the books, plus a prospect who has potential, it's not a bad line of work. I mean, we've seen Drury the last 2 off seasons to make moves that I don't think I've disagreed with. But the problem is the subsequent moves and the following, transactions don't necessarily match. And, going back to K'Andre Miller, my first move would not be to talk about K'Andre Miller. It would be to find somebody who's willing to take on Carson Soucy's contract. That to me, that's got to be the first thing. You take, even if they have to retain a little bit, but if it's $3.5 million off your books for Carson Soucy, and you could then worry about signing Miller and adding Gavrikov and not having to, completely come out of pocket for it, that to me is a better way of business than it is to just move K'Andre Miller.
By the way, that fourth round pick that the Rangers traded to Anaheim, if I had to guess, is the same one that they got in the Trouba trade.
Okay, so Anaheim just got their fourth pick back.
Yeah, Anaheim got their fourth pick back, and I believe, let me see, the Rangers either got theirs or Toronto's third round pick. So, I mean, now you can go back in that Trouba trade and fully finish it, because now the pick's going back. So
exactly.
whatever that trade was, just subtract that fourth round pick.
It's just, we'll see what remains to be seen. And like you said, this is supposed to be the off season, right? We were trying to be casual with the episodes, but I have a feeling we're going to be having a lot of stuff to talk about over the next couple of weeks, and then especially once July 1st comes around. This
is early for me. Like I think I woke up maybe at 10:15, and then I looked down at my phone, or I had an alarm set for like 9:45, but to then just see all this shit pop off, and I was like, all right, it's time to. I was literally on my way out the door to go get something to eat, and then I was like, you know what, we can't not do something about it right now.
9:45, us working Foker.
Listen,
I'm not happy about that.
Listen, come talk to me at midnight when I'm still at work.
That's true. You work late shifts. I'll give you that. So,
yeah.
I mean, when I saw this happen yesterday, because today I think we all knew it was going to happen, but when I saw this start getting reported yesterday, my first thought was, okay, we kind of expected this, but I immediately am thinking about the repercussions of it. And when I use that word, it's not because I think anything bad might happen, but whenever Drury is at the helm, you have to, it remains to be seen what he's going to do with the cap, what he's going to do with the roster. And I don't think this is going to be the only big move. I just have a feeling he's pulling the trigger on a lot of stuff this summer.
So as it sits right now, the Rangers have $15 million in cap space, 14.9. Yep. They have two third rounds, a second round, a fourth, a fifth, 2 sixths, and a seventh. And depending on what they do with this first round pick.
Correct.
You've got some third round picks to trade if you want. You have an extra sixth if you want to move. And right now, you've got a barren lineup. You got a very barren lineup. I mean, that left side is Panarin, Othman, Berard, Parsonen, basically at the moment, as we sit at this particular moment. That's got to, if you don't want to be a bottom feeder team, that's going to have to improve. You're going to have to get somebody on the left side. The right side is, Lafreniere, Perreault, Brodzinski. That's a guy that really underperformed last year, a guy you have no idea what he can produce at the NHL level, and a fourth line right winger. So boy, this team could be really bad next year, and this team could be. I mean, I think the ceiling for them is like second wild card as it sits right now.
Right now, I mean, I have to think they're going to go out and they're going to extend Edstrom, extend Rempe, and put Rempe, Edstrom, and Carrick back as the fourth line. I think that was a good line when they were all healthy. But like you said, the top nine needs a lot of help, and Zibanejad could wind up staying and playing the right wing with JT Miller like he did at the end of last season. You can move him back to his natural center position. You can move Lafreniere back over to the left side, and you could break him up with the Panarin and Trocheck combo that he's been with. I mean, Perreault, give him a chance. You have Othman. Can you give him a chance in the top, both of them in the top six? But again, that all is unknowns, right? You have no solidified players outside of the veterans that you have, and they're starting to dwindle in that category after the last 2 years of moves. So, like I said, I think that there's more to come, and I don't think Drury's going to be content with putting together a rebuilding team on the ice this year. So, and the only way to do that is to either sign somebody, and like we talked about, the forward group isn't deep in terms of free agency. So I have to think there's more trades coming. I know Jason Robertson's name's been floated out there. I don't know what the Rangers would have to put together to be able to get to Jason Robertson, or if they even have the pieces to come close to other teams' offers. But a lot is going to happen between June 12th today and after July 1st. So buckle up if you're a Rangers fan for the next 3+ weeks.
It is funny that we normally do these streams on Thursdays, and this trade just so happens to happen on a Thursday. And
well, usually it's the other way. Usually we do the stream and that breaks at like 7:30 right after we get off.
Thursday night or Friday morning, and we're like, you got to wait a whole week and you forget about it. But shit, I mean, this is not going to be the last you hear of us all off season. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of stuff going on in Rangerland, but I think it's time for me to fucking go get something to eat because I
get back to work. So it's been fun. We'll see what happens. We'll keep everybody updated. If any other news breaks, obviously we'll hop back out and do something similar to this. But it's been fun during the offseason to talk a little bit of Rangers hockey, and we'll see what Drury has in store for the rest of it.
See you, boys.